Hey everybody, this is Rykard here again, and welcome to another Pokemon Showdown battle video. Today's video, I'm going to be using a UU team that I have recently come up with and have really been enjoying using, because there is so many good things about this team and how it functions and survives throughout the battle, while also forcing so many switches and even being able to sweep in its own right. So just to go over the team really quickly, I have a Mega Manectric. There's nothing special about that, just a really standard set, but it's an amazing pivot Pokemon, also packing Intimidate, which helps take physical hits. I'm running a defensive Gliscor, which has U-Turn, Earthquake, Taunt, and Stealth Rock, which is allowing this Pokemon to be really good as obviously a defensive wall, while also setting up hazards and being able to pivot and prevent other opponents from doing any non-attacking things through the use of Taunt. And I have a Alomomola. This is actually a specially defensive set that I stole from a friend. This is Wish Protect with Toxic and Miracote. And this Pokemon is pretty much the center of how this team works, and you'll see why a little bit in this battle. But mainly, this team is just full of so many Pokemon that are inherently bulky, while also inherently offensive. And Alomomola just helps to support their health throughout the entire battle by Wish Passing, and it's absolutely amazing. I'm running a Scarf Togekiss, which is super duper cool, especially because when this thing outspeeds, it just is a nuisance to your opponent because they have to deal with the fact that you are outspeeding them, and also have Serene Grace, which makes this an amazing Pokemon to use. It's also my defogger in case I need it. I'm running a Haxorus, which is basically there to stall break and also set up and sweep because it has both Swords Dance and Dragon Dance along with Dragonium Z to be used in combination with Outrage, and this thing just does so much damage to literally anything. And then lastly on my team I have a Cobalion, which is another like defensive pivot. It allows this Pokemon with the Assault Vest to take hits pretty well as both a physical defensive and special defensive Pokemon. It has Volt Switch for, again, the utility of being able to switch in and out of battle, along with Close Combat and Iron Head, which is pretty standard. Then lastly, I'm also running Quick Attack on this set as well, because this Pokemon really benefits from having this move, and allowing me to have a little bit of utility in revenge killing on the set with the priority that it provides. But overall, this team is just incredibly amazing, and I have been having so much fun using it. I have somewhat been seriously laddering with it. I'm in like the 300 rank range at the moment, but it's nothing too crazy good, but I just want to show you how this team kind of works in this battle. So I'm going to go ahead and lead off with my Manectric as my opponent leads off with Scizor. This actually turns out to be an amazing lead for me, obviously, because I packed the Flamethrower, which is going to allow me to easily just freely get a free Mega Evolve and go for the Flamethrower as my opponent switches into Latias to sponge the hit. Now, typically, I've been running into a lot of Scarfed Latiases, so I was assuming they were going to outspeed. So I go into Togekiss to take the predicted Draco Meteor. He goes with a safe bet, going for the Psychic, but I can still take it really well because Togekiss is just inherently bulky. And this is going to allow me actually a free opportunity to go into Gliscor right here, because I assumed my opponent wasn't going to stay in. But he actually also has another idea in switching out into his Rotom, but thankfully I run a decent amount of speed on my Gliscor, so I can go for the U-turn pretty safely as my opponent tries to nab me with a Hydro Pump. But luckily, Alomomola, being specially defensive, can take that really easily. Now, knowing my opponent can Volt Switch, and this could have been a free opportunity to go for the Miracote right here to just kill the switch in, I usually like to scout just to see what my opponent is going to do first, knowing that my Alomomola can live the Volt Switch really easily. So I go for a Wish, and this actually gives me a free opportunity to just go back into Gliscor, because Amoonguss typically wants to go for Spore or something, so I can just obviously sponge the Spore thanks to the Toxic Orb, and also just get my health recovered easily as well if he wanted to go for a move. But again, he's going to go into his Rotom. I'm going to outspeed and go for the U-turn as he goes for the Will-O-Wisp, possibly predicting me to go for something else. But now, knowing that my opponent definitely wants to Volt Switch, because this is what they did before, this is going to be a free turn for me to just kill something. So I'm going to go for the Miracote. He Volt Switches, and his Cobalion dies to the Miracote as I get burned, which isn't too big of a deal, thanks to Burn being nerfed this gen, in terms of the damage that it does at the end of every turn. But he's going to go into Latias right here, and me predicting the Trick, because I know that that can be pretty common on a Scarfed Latias, which is what I'm assuming this is, and I actually pretty much confirmed that later in the battle. I'm going to go for the Protect right here, just to, dodge the Trick if he goes for it, as he goes into Aerodactyl. But knowing that Aerodactyl really can't touch Alomomola, I'm just going to go for a free Wish right now, and I can just go into anything, because luckily enough for me, I have so many bulky Pokemon on this team that can just take a hit from anything that this Latias wants to go for from full health. So I decided to go into Togekiss. If he wanted to go for Psychic again, I would have took it, and if you want to go for Draco Meteor, I'm obviously immune to it being a Fairy type. As he goes into Amoonguss, which turns out to be a perfect switch for me, go for an Air Slash right here. Like I said, I am Scarf, so I'm going to outspeed whatever he has, aside from another Scarfed Pokemon. But goes into the Rotom, takes it pretty well, and then goes for the Volt Switch right here, as he goes back into his Latias. Now, this is actually still a really good position for me. Even if he wants to predict going for the Draco Meteor, I can live that. But me, again, being fearful of the Trick, go for the protect. And so now I'm thinking, okay, he locked himself into Draco Meteor. There's no way he's going to go for it again because I know I can live it even with Alomomola, so I'm going to go for the Wish. I could have also went into Togekiss, but he decides to just go for the Draco Meteor again for no apparent reason, trying to just get damage on me. But like I said, I would have lived it, and unfortunately, as you saw right there, pretty much worst case scenario, he gets a crit, so my Alomomola goes down. But this gives me a free switch into Manectric, because obviously now with the minus special attack, Manectric can live anything. So I go for the HP Ice, and then him going into Amoonguss, I'm thinking, alright, I can just Volt Switch right here, go out into my Gliscor to set up the rocks. My opponent actually predicted the Flamethrower right there to go into his Aerodactyl. Works out perfectly for me, obviously though, because I can just kill the Aerodactyl freely with my Volt Switch, and then go into Togekiss, basically trying to bait this Scizor out, because I want to know what kind of set this is. And so my opponent, you know, brings it in. He goes for the U-turn though, I guess, obviously assuming that I'd be fearful of the Bullet Punch, which I was. And I'm able to go into Manectric. I see that he's banded based on how much damage that did. So that's actually really good because this team can deal with banded Scizor pretty well, but some Swords Dance variants I have a little bit of trouble with. But I'm just going to go into Cobalion right here, basically just as a pivot. I need to switch it to something to get a free switch out into something else. So I do it, I go for the Volt Switch. I take a little bit of damage in the process, but I can take it because Cobalion is Assault Vested. And then I go into my Togekiss as I now predict him to go into Rotom right here, which I go into Gliscor. Now, knowing that I've U-turned the last few times, showing that I've been afraid of the Hydro Pump, this is where I basically predict him to Volt Switch or basically do something other than Hydro Pump. So I have the free turn to set up the rocks, at least in my mind, and then I taunt him, preventing him from going for the Defog, because that is now a thing that Rotom can do, as he is basically just spamming Volt Switch in this situation. Which he basically can do, because the only thing I can do to hit him is really go for U-turn, which is then going to give him a free switch anyway. But I go into Cobalion knowing I could live the Volt Switch from that range, go for the Quick Attack, just do a little bit of damage to this Latias, which is going to allow me just to get a little bit more, you know, it's helpful. It's not amazing, but it's helpful. But Togekiss is going to come in right here, knowing that my opponent obviously can't really do too much to me now that he's locked on the Psychic, and Psychic was like a 3-hit KO as you saw before. So I'm going to go for the Air Slash, thinking I have some free damage on anything, but it turns out this Rotom is actually a Pinch Berry variant, so he's going to recover half of his health. As I'm going to just basically fish for a flinch right here. Unfortunately, he gets the Defog off, but I stay in on the second turn, trying to get the flinch, knowing that I have a pretty good shot at this, and knowing that Volt Switch wasn't going to kill me because of how little damage it was doing to my Alomomola. So I'm able to just spam Air Slash right here, which actually turns out to be amazing. This play in particular was actually one of the key moments of the game, where he switched into Scizor to take it. This is just going to give me a free switch out to go into Gliscor though, because again, I know this is banded, so if he wants to U-turn, it's not going to do that much, and if he wants to Bullet Punch like you saw right there, it's also not going to do that much. So I'm going to freely go for U-turn right here, knowing that his Scizor is going to switch out, which is going to allow me to get some more chip damage on the Rotom, and then finally just go into Mega Manectric right here, which is going to outspeed and just go for a Volt Switch to take out the Rotom. And so this is going to allow me now basically to put my opponent into a really bad position. I'm going to go into Haxorus right here, and let me pause the video just to show you exactly what's happening right here. Basically, if he goes for Draco Meteor, he's going to lose the game, because I'm going to freely be able to go into Togekiss, which can then easily just go for Air Slash, kill the Amoonguss, or the Scizor, or if he wants to stay in with Latias, and just lose his Latias, which is even better for me, honestly. So basically, I have to force my opponent into a situation where he's going to have to switch out. And I know this. I know that my opponent can't afford to go for Draco Meteor here, especially because Psychic wouldn't kill Haxorus. So I actually stay in on this turn, basically assuming my opponent was going to switch out. Even though this seems like a really weird situation to do that in, I know I'm pretty much safe to win the game if he goes to the Draco Meteor. So I do that. I go for the Outrage. I should have just went for the Z move. I don't know why I didn't do that, but Outrage kills anyway. He goes into Scizor, and that's basically the game right there at this point, because he can't do anything else to me. Scizor was basically his win condition for the battle. And now that his Scizor is gone, he lost the game. If he wants to go into Latias, he can't Draco Meteor me because I'm going to win, because I can just go to Togekiss, kill the Amoonguss, and a variety of other things would have occurred there. So that was the battle. I put my opponent into a really bad position there, but it let me, you know, take advantage of that and KO the opponent, because Haxorus just doesn't care about your steel type resistance. So that's it for the video, everybody, and as always, take care, goodbye, and I will see you all next time.